So this is the project portfolio template, which you're going to be using throughout the semester. And it's basically just an organizational system that I find works well for students that are new to a sort of project-based class or working on larger scale projects. So far in your time in digital innovations, you've worked through smaller projects, things like, an app that you have to build, or perhaps like a publication or a website or things like that. But really, this is for large scale projects that take, a semester, which is really what you're doing in this class. You're talking about making a project that lasts and has enough value to justify your time for, a long, long period, like 16 weeks or 15 weeks or whatever the semester ends up being. So, and I'm talking about both quarters put together just as one semester. So this folder, this is a system that I use and that I encourage my students to use, but you're welcome to use whatever organizational system you'd like. This is, however, how you're going to be evaluated. So using this is really to your best benefit. So I have a root folder just called Project Portfolio. Within that folder, I have 4 other folders and then some documents. And I'm going to share this with you either on Dropbox or Google Drive. But basically, these folders represent different things. So we have a final documentation folder, progress documentation, reference material, which then this has several folders within it, and a sketches and drafts folder. Organize these however you like, but let's just talk about what each one of them is. So a final documentation folder, this is where final images of your work, final projects, like basically once you're done at the end of the semester, this is where everything's going. So this might be, you might not actually use this until the last few weeks of the semester. Progress documentation, if I was to make a making of documentary about your project, this is the folder I would look at. So while you're working, it's important to take diligent documentation of different designs that you have, different iterations that you've made, coding changes, things like that, to work through and see throughout the semester. Then whenever you get to the stage of putting together your final documentation, you can take a lot of these images and say, well, here I was, here are my steps along the way that I took. The sketches and drafts folder, this would include actual drafts of your project, sketches of your project that maybe don't make it into the final documentation, but it's just keeping yourself organized and keeping all of your past things. It's very common for people to lose sketches, to lose early drafts of a project. You never know, years down the line, you might want to use something that you created in that early draft. Reference material folder has several folders within it, but suffice it to say that as a whole, reference material represents basically all of the different things that you're going to be using in your project, such as media, or it might be a reading, it might be something like that. Let's go ahead and dive into this folder. So within here we have 4 smaller folders. We have inspiration, media, readings, and tutorials. Inspiration, generally, this could just be called your Pinterest board, basically. And if you use Pinterest or something like that, then, why not just assign it and say, yep, I'm going to toss my Pinterest board in here, like a link to it or something. But if I find an inspiring image online, I download it and I toss it into my inspiration folder. The reason for that is that if I ever lose it, I have a backup somewhere here in this inspiration folder. Or let's say for some reason, my Pinterest account gets deactivated or the Pinterest link dies. I'm always going to have a copy offline in my inspiration folder. My media and readings folder, both are things that I'm going to be using in my project. So media would be stuff like sound, video, images that you're going to be using in your project. And readings might be things that you're referencing for your project. So this might be something like, an article about this type of design or this type of function or this type of app. Or maybe I did some research on like my user base. That would all go in readings. The tutorials folder is where you're going to put actual tutorials. So that might be my tutorials, that might be videos you find from someone else online. You're going to know what you need to learn, right? So if you're making a game and you need to dive deeper into, let's say, texturing, and you find some textured videos, toss those in this folder, right? Just make a doc in the folder and toss a link in it. I'm going to go ahead and jump back out here. So then I have a couple docs. I have a table of contents doc, which just simply says, what these folders are. Then I have a goals document. This is the document that once I start breaking down my goals, this is what I'm going to use to organize all those goals and schedule them out. This is probably the most important document in the whole project portfolio folder. The pitch document is what I'm going to use whenever I actually create my pitch for my project idea, explaining why it's the project that I want to do and why it has value. And then lastly, the notes document. This is just a scratch space that if I take notes, I toss all of my notes in this document. If I take them by hand, I take a picture of the notes and toss it in here. If I'm on a whiteboard, I take a picture of the whiteboard and toss it in here. It's good to just have all of it in one confined place. So that's really the project portfolio template, and you're going to use this throughout the semester to basically build your project and keep track of all these different resources that you can tie together.